At 80 years old, standing beneath soft golden lights, Dolly Parton didn't look like someone saying goodbye. She smiled the same way she always has. Warm, steady, almost reassuring. The kind of smile that made millions feel like everything would be okay. But this time, something felt different. There was a pause in her voice, subtle but there. A weight behind her words that longtime fans couldn't ignore. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, and that's what made it so powerful. For decades, Dolly wasn't just a singer. She was a constant, a voice that never faded, a presence that never disappeared. Through changing times, changing music, and changing generations, she stayed. And maybe that's why this moment felt so heavy, because for the first time it didn't feel like another performance. It felt like a closing. According to those who were there, the atmosphere shifted as she spoke. Not because of what she said directly, but because of how she said it. There was reflection, there was gratitude. And there was something else, something unspoken that hung in the air. Fans began to notice the details. The way she looked out into the crowd a little longer than usual. The way her voice softened at certain moments, almost as if she was holding something back. The way the applause felt less like celebration and more like appreciation for everything that came before. No official announcement confirmed anything final, no clear goodbye was declared, but questions have been raised. Is this the beginning of the end of an era? Or simply a moment of reflection from someone who has given everything to her craft? Right now, no one can say for certain. But one thing is clear for the millions watching, this didn't feel like just another night. It felt like something they weren't ready to lose. For years, Dolly Parton built a career on something very few artists ever truly achieve, consistency that feels almost timeless. Not just in music but in presence, in energy, in the way she showed up again and again without letting the world see the weight she carried behind the scenes. But recently something has started to shift, not in a way that can be easily pointed out, not in a way that headlines can clearly define. It's quieter than that, subtle. The kind of change you don't notice immediately, but once you do, you can't unsee it. According to reports and audience reactions from recent appearances, there's been a noticeable difference in her delivery. Not weaker, not diminished, but more reflective, more aware. Almost like someone who understands the value of every single moment she's standing in. And at 80, that awareness carries a different kind of meaning. For decades, she moved with unstoppable momentum. Touring, recording, writing, performing, rarely slowing down, rarely stepping back. Even as others from her era faded into quieter lives, she continued forward, almost untouched by time in the public eye. But time, even when it's kind, still moves. Those close to her journey have started to speak carefully about this phase, not as an ending but as a transition. A period where priorities shift, where the pace softens. Where the spotlight doesn't disappear, but becomes something you step in and out of rather than live inside. And fans are beginning to feel it, not because she has said anything definitive. In fact, no official statement has confirmed a farewell. No announcement has declared a final performance or a permanent goodbye, but sometimes it's not about what is said, it's about what is felt. Moments that once felt routine now feel significant. Appearances that once felt expected now feel rare. Every word she speaks, every stage she steps onto, carries a sense of importance that wasn't there before. Questions have been raised quietly but consistently. Is she preparing to step back? Is this a natural slowing down after decades of giving everything? Or is this simply a reflection of someone who has reached a point where looking back matters just as much as moving forward? There are no clear answers. What makes this moment even more complex is the emotional connection she has built with her audience. This isn't just about music, it never has been. For many, Dolly represents stability, a familiar voice in an unpredictable world, a presence that feels permanent even though nothing truly is. And that's where the emotional weight begins to build. Because the idea of less Dolly is something fans have never really had to process before. Even now, she continues to create, continues to appear, continues to engage with the same warmth and authenticity that defined her from the very beginning. But underneath that, there is a growing sense of awareness, not fear. Not sadness in a dramatic sense, just the quiet realization that time is moving forward and that even legends are not outside of it. Some observers have pointed to the tone of her recent speeches. Others have focused on the pacing of her work. A few have even noted how her reflections on her career have become more frequent, more detailed, more personal. Individually, these moments don't confirm anything, but together, they start to form a pattern that suggests this is not just another in a long career. This might be the beginning of something different, Not an ending, not yet, but perhaps the first step toward one. There was a time when slowing down didn't seem possible for Dolly Parton. Even as the industry around her changed, new voices rising, new styles taking over, she remained exactly where people expected her to be. Present, active, unshaken. While others stepped away quietly, she kept going, almost as if momentum itself had become part of who she was. But momentum, no matter how strong, eventually meets reality. In recent months, those who follow her closely have started to notice something deeper than performance. It's not about missed notes or fading energy, none of that. It's about intention. The way each appearance feels more deliberate, more chosen, less automatic. According to audience reactions and public discussions, there's a growing sense that every time she steps into the spotlight now, it carries more meaning than it used to. Not because she's doing less, but because every moment feels like it matters more. Observers have pointed out how her recent interviews have taken on a slightly different tone. She speaks more about the past than she used to. Not in a nostalgic way that feels distant, but in a grounded, almost careful way. As if she's preserving something, as if she knows people are listening differently now. Phrases like "I've been blessed" or "I've lived a full life" appear more often. And while those words aren't unusual on their own together, they create a feeling that's hard to ignore. A feeling of reflection. At the same time, her schedule has subtly changed, not dramatically, not enough to trigger headlines, but enough for longtime followers to notice. Appearances feel more selective. Projects seem more intentional. There's less of the constant movement that once defined her career, and that shift has led to quiet speculation. Is she choosing to step back, or is she simply adjusting to a pace that matches where she is in life right now? There's a difference between the two, but from the outside, it's not always easy to tell. According to reports, those close to her have been careful not to frame this as a retirement phase. No official confirmation suggests she is leaving the stage completely. In fact, she continues to create, to speak, to connect. But even without confirmation, the emotional atmosphere has started to change. Fans aren't just watching anymore. They're paying attention in a different way. Every appearance now feels like something to hold on to. Every performance feels like something to remember, not just enjoy in the moment and move on from. It's a subtle shift but a powerful one, because it changes how everything is experienced. Moments that once felt routine now carry a sense of importance. Words that once felt casual now feel intentional. Even silence, those brief pauses between sentences, seems to say more than it used to. And that's where the emotional tension begins to build. Not from anything dramatic or confirmed, but from the space between what is happening and what might be coming next. Some analysts have suggested that this phase is natural for artists who have given as much as she has. That after decades of constant output, a quieter, more reflective rhythm is not only expected, it's necessary. Others believe this could be something more significant, not a sudden ending. Not a final goodbye, but a gradual shift toward one. The truth is, no one outside her inner circle knows exactly what this phase represents, and that uncertainty is what makes it so powerful. Because for the audience, it creates a question that doesn't have a clear answer. How do you prepare for the possibility of an era ending when the person at the center of it is still right there in front of you? For now, she remains present. She remains engaged. She remains in many ways exactly who she has always been. But at the same time, something is changing, not loudly, not clearly, but enough that people can feel it. And once that feeling starts, it doesn't go away. For someone like Dolly Parton, the stage was never just a place to perform. It was where everything came together, the stories, the emotions. The connection. For decades, she didn't just stand in front of an audience, she met them there. Every lyric carried something real, every word felt lived in, and that's what made her different. It wasn't just talent, it was presence. But now that presence feels deeper, not louder, not bigger, just heavier in a way that's hard to explain. According to recent audience reactions, her performances have taken on a slightly different emotional tone. The songs are the same, the voice is still familiar. But the feeling behind them has shifted. There's more space between the lines, more pauses, moments where it feels like she's not just performing the song but remembering it. And that distinction matters. Because when an artist begins to perform from memory instead of momentum, it changes how everything is experienced, not just for them but for the people watching. Some fans have pointed out that certain lyrics now seem to carry a different weight. Lines about time, about love, about holding on, they land differently than they used to. Not because the words have changed, but because the moment has. There have been moments, according to those present, where the crowd grows quieter than expected. Not out of confusion, but out of awareness. As if everyone understands without saying it that what they're witnessing isn't just another performance, it's something more personal. Something that feels closer to reflection than routine. At the same time, her interaction with the audience has become more intentional. She lingers a little longer between songs, speaks a little more directly, looks out into the crowd not just as a performer, but as someone taking it in, not rushing, not pushing forward, just being there, and that shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Some observers have suggested that this is the natural evolution of a performer who has spent a lifetime on stage. That over time the focus moves away from proving something and toward appreciating it. Others believe it may signal something more, a quiet preparation. Not necessarily for a final performance, but for fewer of them. Because even without an official announcement, the idea of limitation has started to enter the conversation. Not in terms of ability, but in terms of time. And that's where the emotional complexity deepens, because Dolly Parton has always represented continuity, a sense that no matter how much the world changes, some things remain. But now, for the first time, that sense of permanence feels uncertain, not broken, just questioned. And that question is enough to change how people respond. Applause feels louder but also more meaningful. Cheers feel stronger but also more emotional. Even the quiet moments feel heavier, like something is being held onto a little tighter than before. There's also been growing discussion around how she chooses her set lists. While no drastic changes have been confirmed, some fans believe there's a pattern: more songs that reflect her journey, more moments that look backward rather than forward. Individually, these details don't prove anything, but together they create a feeling, a sense that these performances are no longer just about entertaining an audience, they're about something else. Something more personal, something that feels at times like a conversation between where she's been and where she might be going next. And maybe that's what makes this so powerful. Because nothing has officially ended, nothing has been clearly defined, but something has undeniably changed. And the closer people look, the more they begin to feel it. For decades, Dolly Parton existed in a space that felt almost untouched by time. Not because time didn't pass, but because she never let it define her. While the world shifted around her, she remained steady, consistent, present. Always moving forward, always creating, always showing up in a way that made people believe she might never slow down. But now the conversation around her has started to change. Not in headlines, not in official statements, but in the way people talk about her. According to ongoing public discussions, there's been a noticeable shift in how fans and media interpret her recent appearances. It's no longer just about what she's doing, it's about what it might mean. Moments that would have once passed without deeper analysis are now being examined more closely. Every interview, every performance, every public statement, not out of doubt, but out of awareness. Because for the first time, people aren't just watching her career unfold, they're considering the possibility of it slowing down. And that idea has created a different kind of emotional response. Across fan communities, reactions have become more reflective, more protective. There's a growing sense that every new moment with her matters in a way it didn't before. Not because she's disappearing, but because the idea of forever no longer feels guaranteed. Some fans have expressed quiet concern, not based on any confirmed issue, but on the natural reality of time. Others have focused on appreciation, choosing to celebrate what she continues to give rather than question what might come next. And then there are those who exist somewhere in between, grateful for the present but aware of the future. This emotional balance is what makes the current moment so complex, because it's not driven by a single event. There's been no major announcement, no defining turning point, no clear signal that everything is about to change. Instead, it's been built slowly, through tone, through pacing, through subtle shifts that on their own don't seem significant, but together create something impossible to ignore. Even media coverage has started to reflect this change. Language has become more careful, more reflective. Words like legacy, era, and impact appear more frequently in discussions surrounding her, not as a conclusion, but as a recognition of where she stands. At the same time, those who have followed her for years have begun revisiting her journey, not out of nostalgia alone, but as a way of understanding the present, looking back at where she started, what she built, how she sustained it for so long, and what it means now. Because when someone's career spans decades at the highest level, the idea of transition carries a different kind of weight. It's not just about stepping back, it's about what remains, and that's where the focus has quietly started to shift, from what she will do next to what she has already done. From future plans to lasting impact, from ongoing momentum to enduring legacy. None of this confirms an ending, but it does change the lens through which everything is viewed. And that lens affects how every moment is experienced. Applause feels more intentional, interviews feel more meaningful. Even simple appearances carry a sense of importance that goes beyond the moment itself. Because now, whether people say it out loud or not, there's an underlying question that continues to grow. How long can this continue? There is no clear answer. According to available information, she remains active, engaged, fully present in her work and in her connection with audiences. But at the same time, the emotional atmosphere around her has shifted in a way that can't be easily reversed. It's no longer just about celebrating what she does. It's about understanding what she represents, and what it might feel like if that presence ever begins to fade. That possibility, unconfirmed, undefined, but deeply felt, is what gives this moment its weight. Not an ending, but the awareness that one eventually will come. And for many, that awareness is enough to change everything.